It's that time. Welcome to Roadmap, how to take 3 listings a week until you're ready for more. Each week we interview a great agent who's consistently taking several listings each month, and we have an exciting guest today. We encourage you to take notes and apply as much of their knowledge as quickly as you can, and then use the copycat principle. Before I introduce our guest, let me introduce my co-host from San Diego, Carly Hathaway. That's carlyhathaway.com. Hi, Carly. How's the real estate business?
Hi, Ran. Hi, everybody. Real estate is great in beautiful, sunny San Diego. Things are moving very fast right now.
Great. That's a magical place. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to remind everyone we are also simulcasting the show on the private lead gen group on Facebook. They have 52,000 members, and so we have a large audience there today as well. And we will be pausing for a commercial message during the show as a thank you to the lead gen folks. Let me welcome our guest today from Paradise, Miami, Palm Beach, that whole area, Mr. Nick Grodzicki. I didn't get that right. Nick Grodzicki.
Perfect. Nick,
I did it?
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Nick, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for asking. Here in, like you said, sunny Paradise, South Florida.
It's a wonderful thing. Now you were on a team, and then you discovered Vulcan7. You broke off on your own. How's that going? How long's that been since you did that?
So when I first got into the real estate business, I'll give you a little background on myself. I went to school for business, did 2 years in sales, but prior to joining the real estate business, originally from Michigan, so 5 states north of sunny South Florida. It came down, so it was March of 2019 when I got into the real estate business, joined the top producing team off $1 million listing, Miami. And from there, right away, they had put me into using Vulcan7. And I went down to South Florida with absolutely zero contacts, not knowing anything about South Florida other than visiting Miami maybe once or twice for spring break in college, right? And from there, Vulcan7 just has really tremendously helped me become successful in the real estate business in a short time.
We've heard that from other agents too. It's like when you're starting over, you can't use your sphere of influence. You can't call friends and family. You can't work like that. You have to start from scratch. So it's really nice that you did it.
Well, but there's the mixed blessing, Carly, because if you did that, you would sell less.
Exactly. That's true. That's true. So how long have you been in Florida?
I moved to Florida March of 2019, so a little over a year now.
Okay. And what's your goal for this year?
My goal for 2020 is to sell $20 million worth of real estate and, utilizing some of the past connections I made from Vulcan7 in 2019, but also just really hardcore prospecting with Vulcan7 moving forward throughout 2020 and being a long-term customer. I mean, if it wasn't for Vulcan7, I wouldn't be where I am today in the real estate business.
Good. So is that that'd be like $21 million homes or 40 $500,000 homes or is it just four or $5 million homes? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I was going to say I like to work smarter, not harder. So I target anything $1 million plus. So yeah, I mean, it would be better to do one $45 million house, of course, but anything $1 million and above is my target market.
Good, we like it. So let's talk about schedule. I always like to start with this. Can we start with your morning routine and who you start calling in the morning and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So right around 7 o'clock in the morning, I log on to the local MLS, check to see what the expireds have been, the canceled, withdrawn properties. From there, I log into the Vulcan account right around 7:30 and legally can't start calling till 8 o'clock in the morning. So 8 o'clock in the morning is right when I jump on the dialer, start prospecting the properties after I did some preview on the properties, like I said, between 7 and 8, but jump on the dialer and typically spend 8 to 11 o'clock on the dialer straight, just moving forward with it and trying to get as many listing appointments as I can. And I try and set the appointments for either that day or the next day. You want to keep it as close as possible to the actual day of setting the appointment, so there's no any open time where they could cancel or reschedule the appointment.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Okay. And being that you are a newer agent, you're staying on the phone for 2-3 hours a morning. How difficult was that starting out? Because obviously you're a little bit stuttery, you're not as confident, you're getting hung up on. how did you get past that initial difficulty?
Yeah, absolutely. And first I want to just reiterate. So when I did first start in March, the 8 to 11 is my current schedule, on the phones, and I usually do 6 to 8 at night. But when I did first start in the business, I was making 1,000, 1,200 calls a day, and it wasn't just 8 to 11. It was 8 to 8 at night. I was constant call. And basically, it's a commission-based business. So you get rewarded for what you put in. And so I was just calling 12 hours a day, honestly, until the dialer let me start, until the dialer took me off at night, until business started to come out of it. And then it, where I'm at today is 3 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. And I try to keep the middle of my day for appointments, follow-ups, and everything like that. But can you repeat your question for me one more time?
Well, first of all, I love that because, what else are you going to do in the beginning of your career? You don't have other pendings. You don't have anything else going on. Why not stay on the phones all day? So that's a really great strategy. How did you overcome the people hanging up on you, all the no's you were getting? How did you physically or mentally make yourself stay on the phones?
Yeah, exactly. Sales is just a numbers game, and it's a mental game. So when I was in college, I had 3 sales internships. All of them happened to be around cold calling in different industries. And so I really developed that rhino skin, as some like to call it. I've been told, lots of things to keep it, to keep it good for the air. I've been told lots of things, but honestly, you can't let the no's affect you. You got to just keep going. You're going to get that yes. And honestly, if I set one listing appointment a day, there are many days that I sent a lot more than that. But if I set at least one a day, it's a numbers game again. So at the end of the month, I call 7 days a week, by the way. Saturdays and Sundays are actually the best because no one else is calling. But if you do 30 days of the month or 31, whatever, and then at the end of the month, if you just did one a day, that's 31 appointments. And if only 5 of them sign and they're all $1 million, that's 5 million in inventory and 5 new listings a month. So like I said, I was calling 1,000, 1,200 people a day when I first got started, and it'll work. It's just get past those no's. Don't let it personally affect you, and continue to get that yes.
What a great attitude and mindset. I love it. You're just charged through. And what did you call it? Rhino skin? Thick skin?
Yeah, I called it the rhino skin, right? Don't let anyone affect you. No one can affect your personal energy. If you do, then they have control. You don't.
Yeah. I like it. And you see the end goal. You're like, okay, that's $5 million. Just keep going. Just keep pushing through.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Just because it's such a mental game, and to make 12 hours worth of calls, you're in that 0.25% that can mentally handle that. That is the biggest challenge, because most humans, after about 2 hours of calls, feel pretty full.
Right. Those were my sales internships as well. We're just call, and like I said, between 3 internships. And at first, my first internship, it was you build that I guess that toughness of just to keep going. My wife jokes about, she said, your AirPods are just going to morph into your ears, and you're going to grow antennas because you're on that Vulcan dialer all the time. But I'm like, hey, it works.
It works. Okay. And so who are you calling throughout your day? Who's first on your list? Who are you going through?
Yeah. So I call expireds, canceleds, withdrawns, and for sale by owners. And usually what I do is I start with today. So those are the most hot leads that just came off the market last night at midnight. So I'll start with today with expireds, canceled, and all the categories that I just named. And after today, I'll go back one day and just call yesterday's. After yesterday's, I'll go back and call today. After that, I go back and call 2 days ago. And I keep doing that back and forth, calling today, because today's are the hottest prospects, until I get to a week past. So now at the end of that cycle, I've called today's 7 times in a row in the morning. And I also, being from Michigan, I use a Michigan number so they don't go, oh, it's another agent calling me. But I also use a South Florida number so they don't go, who's this spam guy with a Michigan calling me in Florida? So I go back and forth like that. I end up calling today's 7 different times, and the other ones previous in the week, I call them quite a bit as well. And eventually I get through to someone.
Yeah.
And once I get to talk to them, that's my chance.
Yeah. I like that schedule. I hadn't heard that before. Like, call today's, then go to yesterday's, then go back to today's, then go for 2 days. I really like that because then you're calling the new ones pretty much every hour on the hour.
Right. And I do that 4 times in the morning. So once I get to 7, I'll repeat the cycle, and then I do it 4 times back in a row like that.
Love that. That's great.
Do you do anything for mindset? You were saying, if I remember, that that for mindset you were following. What was that? Grant Cardone,
and then I named off all the other gurus. But
Tony Robbins and whatnot. I mean, what is there? Do you have a rhythm around that for your mindset? Because these are mindset pieces.
My goal is to read at least 1 book a month or more, but really it breaks down to, again, numbers. So I set an hour a day that I set aside for reading motivational books, sales books, negotiation books. And, typically it comes to 1 to 3 books a month, depending on the size of the book. But I always shoot for an hour a day of reading, and it really keeps your mind positive and not letting the nose affect you and the negative things you will hear on the phone. I mean, it's easy in the sense of the actual task. It's, the mental side of it isn't as easy. However, it easily can be developed if you want it bad enough.
Okay, so an hour and a day of that. And are you in any kind of masterminds with other agents or anything like that?
No, I'm not really. I mean, being on I'd say especially to newer agents, getting started, joining a top team in your area is definitely helpful, especially if you're new to the area, because if you're moving a state away, wherever, a city, whatever, you now know some agents in the area, people to pick their brains with, kind of have that camaraderie when you do get that listing or that sale under contract. But after a while, it only makes sense from a financial standpoint to take what you learned and go on your own.
Okay, gotcha. Well, you've got it down. The only thing, and we were talking about this offline, is unlike almost every single guest we've had on the show, Nick is not yet in any kind of formal coaching. So unfortunately, Nick, even though there'll be agents, because we'll have your phone number and contact information at the end of the show, that will be calling to send you a referral, a listing referral, or whatever it may be, that you may hear from a couple of people that say you need to be in our coaching. So
I was going to say, feel free to call me. I call 1,000 people a day. So now it's my turn to get lit up a little bit.
That's right. Well, like, what do you mean you aren't coaching?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Mindset's so tight and you're so militant about it. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, I found, and another thing is you can't just do the calling. You also have to stay organized with using Vulcan's folders and when to follow up with them and how to follow up with them. Because most of the time you get them on the phone, it's the right data. I mean, the top team I was on tried multiple different data services, and by far Vulcan was the most accurate. And that's why we canceled any and all other services and just heavily invested all into Vulcan. They were most accurate with names, numbers, emails. So anyways, you have to be organized with the data too, though. Once you speak to someone, what did you say? When did you speak to them? When's the next follow-up? You want to make sure, whether you're a new or seasoned agent, that you're following up with them and always getting a date when they expect to follow up with them, and do what you say. So you always want to, if you talk to them today, maybe set that follow-up for Thursday or Friday, get a time in their head to kind of clear their schedule, and then follow up with them exactly when you told them you would. So it kind of builds that credibility and trust before you list their home.
That's so true. Let me ask you this. When you're working FSBOs, it's a lot more follow-up. So what's your kind of schedule around doing your follow-up with the FSBOs that you talk to?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just, again, when you're each client's a little bit different. So you want to ask them what works best for them. Some of them say, I want to try it a couple weeks and they're done with it. Some of them want to try it a full 6 months and then they want to speak to an agent. So you kind of just want to ask questions, as always in sales, and do a little bit of fact finding, and then keep your calendar when they ask for you to follow up with them. But you really just want to talk to them about what's the activity level that they're getting, and and make them aware that when they do use an agent, don't just think about the 6% or 5%, whatever it is that you're charging them, because most of the time agents can get you more money for your property and actually can take the headache away from you having to babysit your house, show it, take calls. And I mean, that's why we're hired to do what we do. And I think after a couple of weeks, the seller finally realized, okay, I'm sick of showing the house. I'm sick of getting the calls. And it's just what level of threshold does that seller have before they cave and hire the agent. And so you want to stay top of mind with them and always following up very proactively.
I like it. Good strategy.
Beautiful thing. This is great. This is great.
And it works. I mean, I listed a house recently for $2.7 million off of FSBO, and they ended up taking a month. I did another I've done multiple FSBOs, but that's just one of the most recent examples. And I think just being there for them, not just to get the sale and just to get that listing, is, hearing what their concerns are and kind of hearing what they're going. I mean, sometimes I'll talk to them on the phone for an hour and just let them vent to me about it's a stressful process. It's one of their most prized assets that they're dealing with. And it's a large amount of money, especially when you're dealing with $1 million+ homes.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what goes back to you saying you have to be really organized and take really good notes, because, if you do call them back 2 weeks later, you want that conversation fresh in your mind.
Exactly.
Nick, are you tracking numbers? Like if we said, what's your batting average? You go on 10 listing appointments. How many do you take? Things like that.
Yeah. I mean, so I have it all in an Excel sheet that I use for all my listing appointments that I have. And then, I have a color coding system that I set up. So did I go on the appointment, and that's a certain color, and then do I have the listing that's green? Are they not interested for another 6 months? That's a different color. So as far as like tracking averages and like an actual percentage wise, I could easily do that. I'd pull a report based on my color coding system I set up, but I don't have it like right in front of me.
What's your gut say? You go on 10 appointments. How many do you ultimately end up taking?
I mean, I think the hardest part is just getting that appointment, and once you have that appointment, being likable, being personable, building that sense of trust and that personal rapport right off the bat, 8 out of 10, you're getting the listing once.
Okay, so roughly 80%. Okay, so that means you're doing a little bit of pre-qualifying too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You're asking a number of questions before you get there, because sometimes when we ask those questions, then we choose not to go.
Absolutely, because I mean, in this business, time is money. It's what's your motivation behind the sale?
Yeah.
What is your time frame looking like? Have you tried? What was the past activity like with the past agent? If the house was listed for $2 million, they said, well, I got offers for $195, but I want my $2 million. I'm not going to go on that appointment, because if you're getting an offer that close to the $2 million, I'm just going to spin my wheels with them.
Or if they got 3 offers at 1.1, then that tells you something too.
Right. That definitely tells you something. That means they're asking way too much.
Right.
And I don't ever try and get too much into price on the phone, just because I don't want to scare them away when you hit them with the realistic number, because there are a lot of sellers that are unrealistic. But I want to kind of beat around the bush a little bit to kind of get a feeling for where they're at, but at the same time not hit them with the hard fact yet. So I'm like in front of them, they like me, and we're already into the appointment.
Right. Well, if the motivation's high enough, no matter what, you want to get in front of them. If they have to sell and they have to sell soon, you want to be in front of them, which is, but if you feel it out and you find out that their motivation is like a one on a scale of 1 to 10, then maybe you don't go. Especially unless they're realistic on price.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You get the classic, I'm just testing the market. Well, yeah, you can test that with another agent when you're ready to actually, sell on the market, you can call me back. So.
Wonderful. Good deal. This is powerful information. This is going to help some of our folks, because we have folks that would like to get where you are, where every day they're looking for a seller. When you look for a seller, and you build up that inventory, so control, as you were talking about offline, if you control the inventory, you've got it. You have money and the time to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, as the saying goes, I've learned is buyers are liars, and yes, that is part of our business, and we can't push away all the buyers, or push away any buyers for that matter. However, when time is money, you want to control the inventory, so as many listings as you possibly can have. Before we went on the show, you mentioned, you can be away for 3 days and you're still selling homes. You can't do that with buyers. So get as many listings as possible. The buyers will come from the listing.
You come back from the Caribbean and you've sold 3 homes. Yep. And you can't do that on the buy side. So it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. And And then if you end up with a buyer, then it can break your stride, and you get that one buyer sale, but you lost 3 listings. So
Right.
So what are you doing with those? What do you do with those buyers? Do you have somebody to give those buyers to?
So I was on the team, and they did have a guy that was strictly just the buyer leads, whether it was from Zillow or another listing. And that's one of the reasons I decided to as well go off on my own, knowing that I was missing a portion of the business. But eventually I just started my own group called Grodzicki Group. And eventually I will be hiring a buyer's agent to specifically handle and filter all the buyer leads. And actually, when I first joined the top team that I joined, they had originally said, "Oh, we have spot to kind of shadow our buyer agent." And I quickly realized, after a couple weeks, I'm like, this isn't where the money is in the business. It's prospecting on the phone.
Yeah.
I said, get me on the phone. He goes, really? I'm like, yeah, definitely. So the first day using Vulcan7, I set quite a few appointments. He goes, okay, that's your spot on the team. You can.
Rejection pays very well.
Yeah.
Right. It does. Exactly.
That is great. This is Nick. This has been great. And what's the best way for them to reach you? And a lot of you as agents that are watching, and you live in Chicago, or you live in Minnesota, you live in New York, you need to buy a place from Nick right now, and he'll get you fixed up. So what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, they can contact me at 786-860-1382. Again, 786-860-1382, but they can also reach me on any of my social channels. So Instagram's at Nick Grod. As you mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's Grodzicki, so I shortened it a little bit to make it easier to find me. NICKGROD. That's on Instagram.
Great, and we'll print that on the screen, so right about now, so people can see that. And I want to remind everybody, if you're watching on Vulcan7 and you want to get involved with the Lead Gen Facebook group that simulcasts the show, they are at facebook.com/groups/got-objections. And finally, if you're watching on Facebook and you're not yet involved with Vulcan7, can't imagine, make sure to sign up at vulcan7.com/leadgen for a special deal. And then, and Nick may not be aware of this unless he watched the end of one of the shows, if you wonder what the secret is, Nick Grodzicki's secret to handling all that rejection and blowing through it and being a very wealthy person, which just 2 years in the business, two. Paradise can be yours, but you have to have the secret. And the secret is, what Nick does is, after he's made his calls, he goes to the freezer and gets delicious Grater's mint chocolate chip. Mint chocolate chip, that's the one for listing property. If you're working with buyers, that is Rocky Road. So you want the mint chocolate chip. You don't want to go down the Rocky Road. So go to graters.com to find where you can buy it in your area all over North America. I want to thank everybody for being here. And hopefully you've gotten some great ideas from Nick that help your business. And I hope we can hear from you. If you're out there and you watch this and Nick helped you blow it up, and 2-3 months from now, reach out to us and we'll interview you, and we'll just keep moving this thing forward. Nick will teach you, and then you teach somebody else. So thanks, everybody.
I want to thank you as well for having me out on the show. It's been great. And if anyone wants to reach out, questions, comments, if you want any tips that I'm using, or just to share your feedback from what I've shared, if it's helped you out, I'd love to hear from you, and open to it anytime you want. So thank you again for having me. And you definitely will not regret going with Vulcan7. It's all my leads where I got when I moved down to Florida. So
hey, I love the free advertising. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us today. I think we're going to have a lot of people rewatching it, and people are going to be very excited to see you. So thank you so much.
Good. Have a great summer, Nick.
thank you. Take care.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.